Good morning and welcome to this Thought for the Day for Friday. And if you've been following Thought for the Day over the last couple of days, then you'll have been listening to the story of Paul's shipwreck, a ripping yarn of the New Testament, a story full of nautical authenticity of how, against Paul's advice, they took ship at the end of the favourable season and they met hurricane-force winds, were forced this way and that until the ship began to break up, and how Paul saved those who were on board from death at the Roman swords by promising that they were all going to survive and taking authority, he told them that they'd all be safe and that they were to make for shore. And sure enough, at the end of chapter 7 we read, everyone reached land in safety. And so we go on into chapter 28. I'm not going to read quite all the passage, but you'll get the hang of it. When safely on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. The islanders showed us unusual kindness. They built a fire and welcomed us all because it was raining and cold. Paul gathered a pile of brushwood, and as he put it on the fire, a viper, driven out by the heat, fastened itself on his hand. When the islanders saw the snake hanging from his hand, they said to each other, "This man must be a murderer, for though he escaped from the sea, justice has not allowed him to live." But Paul shook the snake off into the fire, and it suffered no ill effects. The people expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead. But after waiting a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they changed their minds and said, "He is a god." There was an estate nearby that belonged to Publius, the chief official of the island. He welcomed us to his home and for 3 days entertained us hospitably. His father was sick in bed, suffering from fever and dysentery. Paul went in to see him and after prayer placed his hands on him and healed him. When this had happened, the rest of the sick on the island came and were cured. They honoured us in many ways, and when we were ready to sail, they furnished us with the supplies we needed. After 3 months, we put out to sea in a ship that had wintered in the island. And so when we got to Rome, Paul was allowed to live by himself with a soldier to guard him. We see Paul's standing on authority rising steadily. They see the snake fall off his hand into the fire, and despite their expectations, find that he suffered no ill effect, and that causes them to treat him with awe. And then there's the healing of Publius's father, and that creates such a reputation that everybody sick on the island comes and is prayed for by Paul and is healed. And so we see the way in which God is with Paul, blessing Paul, giving him authority and enabling him to speak to the people. And so when he eventually reaches Rome, such is the way in which he's regarded that we see that he was allowed to live by himself with a soldier to guard him. As I've said before in these thoughts for the day, it's very difficult to put the amazing events of the Acts of the Apostles and the healings that we see into the context of our current faith journey. We do lots of prayer for healing, and we do see healings, but we know that it's not of the same order of the story that reads in the Acts of the Apostles. But God is at work. God is establishing the gospel, and so that within the Acts of the Apostles we see it reaching round the known world and becoming a vibrant church from the early beginnings of the 12 apostles in Acts chapter 1. And as we read these words, they can be an inspiration to us. They're an encouragement to us to follow on the message, follow on the task of spreading the gospel that we were given in Acts chapter 1. It encourages us to know that God has power and authority, and to reach out to him and to his Holy Spirit to give us power and authority as we seek to carry on his work today. We may not be in the days of the Acts of the Apostles, but we work with the same God, and he has the same power and the same authority, and around the world great things are happening, and the gospel is growing, the church is being extended, and we want to be a part of it. So God bless you today and enable you to fulfill God's purposes for you in the establishment of his kingdom on earth.